You can listen to the Canadian Gothic early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
The stepfather of two missing Nova Scotia siblings is now facing charges of sexual assault and forcible confinement in an incident involving an adult.
So how would you describe your relationship?
Don't really want to talk on too much to do with Malehya. It's best that we don't.
Okay.
I hate to put a timeline on it, but I believe that with hard work and the work we're doing and the information we're gathering, we will find out what happened.
You are listening to Canadian Gothic.
It's now been over 9 months since 4-year-old Jack and his 6-year-old sister, Lilly Sullivan, were reported missing from their home in rural Nova Scotia. Since then, the case has twisted and turned in nearly every direction, yet to this point, none have led back to Jack or Lilly. But it seems lately, something's happening. Easily the most significant update this case has seen since the search began happened just last week. The most vocal player in this story, the children's stepfather Daniel Martell, was arrested and charged with a series of offenses related to a still unnamed adult female complainant. And tonight, in this episode, Madeleine Klein and I are going to break down what happened, what it may mean to the Jack and Lilly case, and talk about everything else that's surfaced since our prior episode. So grab a drink and get comfortable. In the 16th episode of this Canadian Gothic series, we'll again be asking, where are Jack and Lilly Sullivan? Miss Madeleine Klein, is it me or do you have a little bit of a tan today? What's going on over there?
I sure do. I'm glowing and I'm not pregnant. I'm post vacation.
Post vacation, your skin is glowing, but is your mood and attitude? Because I find post vacation, I'm an absolute wreck.
Oh, yes. No, like this is all a facade. I've had 2 buffer days and this is day 3 and I'm still just like very emotional and like I forgot how much the post vacation come down sucks.
Yeah, coming from like the tropics to Regina, Saskatchewan in February isn't a smooth transition for anybody, I don't imagine.
And it's like, I'm even lucky. It's nice out here and it's still like, ugh.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into it here. We have a lot to discuss. You've had a great time fooling around in Mexico, but while you were gone, so much has happened in the Jack and Lilly Sullivan case. We've said this many times before. This may be the most activity that this case has seen in any one week. Let's not tease the lead. Let's just get into the big update right off the start here. On Monday, January 26th at 11:30 a.m., the stepfather of Jack and Lilly Sullivan, Daniel Martell, was arrested. And not for a crime said to be related to Jack and Lilly Sullivan, but for something that's really going to change a lot of people's opinions about him. Here's the update.
The stepfather of two missing Nova Scotia siblings is now facing charges of sexual assault and forcible confinement in an incident involving an adult. RCMP say 34-year-old Daniel Robert Martell was arrested Monday morning. He was released with conditions and is due back in court in March. Martell was in a common law relationship with Malehya Brooks Murray, the mother of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. The children, who were aged 6 and 4 at the time, were reported missing on May 2nd, 2025, from their home in Pictou County.
So this is some big news. As you can imagine, when news of Daniel's arrest broke just a little over a week ago, every kind of level of media and person involved in covering this story went completely nuts. I think a lot of people, as anyone who listens to the series knows, there's been a lot of people who've been pointing fingers at Daniel related to possibly having involvement in the children's disappearance. I think for those people, this news is a whole lot of wind behind their backs, a wind in their sails, but I can't help but think there's a lot more to it. So let's break down a little bit about it. But first, let me just ask you, your opinion on Daniel really has shifted over the last probably 5 or 6 episodes that we've done, especially so after part 15, which was a whole episode really where we just discussed these abuse allegations against Daniel. Now this, what are your thoughts on this development?
I didn't know that I could like him less, and it's plummeting even further.
Yeah. And of course, these are charges. He hasn't been convicted of anything, but everything about it, it's so in a way surprising, but there's still a lot of questions and a lot of mystery around this. So I'll tell you what we know about these charges. That news clip was really brief and, in what they were able to share, but there is a little bit more. So we know that the incident that the charges relate to happened sometime around December 1st of 2024, which would have been 6 months before the children even went missing, and at the time that he was still with Malehya. The incident happened on Garlock Road in Lansdowne Station, which is the street that the children, Daniel and Malehya, lived on. The incident involved an adult female complainant. The police or the courts haven't released the identity of the complainant to these charges, but they did say it was an adult female. The police unofficially, it hasn't been a big statement from them, but they have said that the charges don't relate to the disappearance of Jack and Lilly. But I guess given the fact that it happened months prior, that I guess kind of makes sense. But so much of following this story is also following the family dynamics. And, we don't know if Malehya is the complainant, but given the developments we discussed last on their prior episode and the allegations of abuse made against him, that kind of all tracks with what these charges say.
Just who else would it be? If we're using our noggins here.
Yeah. A publication ban would prevent us from even saying if we knew, but a female on Garlock Road at the time that this couple was together, given the fact that, again, in the court documents, she accused him of holding her down, and one of the charges is forcible confinement, of pushing her, one of the charges are assault. That kind of tracks. The sexual assault charge, nothing from the court documents would lead me to think that was a thing. There was no allegations related to sex crimes in those court documents, but clearly something is going on. And I think this development, what it does say is a lot about Daniel's relationship maybe with law enforcement, because in so many of the interviews he gives with the media, he makes it seem like he's almost a part of the investigative team. And that's something we criticized him on recently. But it seems like maybe that's not the case anymore.
So for the sexual assault charges, a staggering amount of people think that marital rape isn't a thing. And it doesn't matter if you're with the person. Sexual assault is sexual assault, and nobody has authority or permission to anyone else's body. It doesn't matter if you're with them. So, and also all of these allegations, sexual assault, forcible confinement, I don't believe that there is a statute of limitations on those. So I have a feeling after all of this happened, with the kids going missing and the other assault accusations, I think someone said, you know what, there's no statute, charge him, because he should be charged.
Yeah, and that's a part of the mystery of this is why now? Why so much long after? I wonder if someone, whoever the complainant in this is, did they recently come forward with the allegations, or is it something that's been investigated for some time and maybe the police thought, now is the time to crank up the heat on Daniel Martell. We're going to get him with this and see what, shake the tree and see what falls out kind of thing. I really wonder about that because, again, in part 15 of this series, when we discussed the allegations Malehya made against Daniel as revealed in the court documents, these were allegations she made days after the kids went missing, almost a year ago. So if the police were investigating the crime from those allegations, those charges would have been laid a long time ago, you would have thought.
You'd think. And so did we say December 2024?
So here's the thing with when the incident happened that these charges are related to, there's kind of two versions. One is some media is reporting that it was an incident on December 1st of 2024, and other media is giving a 4 or 5 month span that includes that date, which would make it seem like it was multiple incidents. But a lot of people are taking the allegations Malehya made that we discussed in our last episode and assuming that's what led to these charges. But those allegations that Malehya made were allegations she gave to the police in an interview, I think 2 days after Jack and Lilly went missing, like, May of 2025. So either way, if this stuff relates to Malehya, it's stuff that happened a long time ago. And I wonder what would motivate the police to lay charges now, unless there was some delay with investigating, because I guess it probably would get extra complicated dealing with Daniel and the missing kids and everything else. Maybe they're thinking, we're going to charge him, but we don't want to rock the boat right now.
Right. Either that, or I have two possible theories. One is that she had no idea she was a victim. And then once she was telling somebody about the shit that went down, they were like, that's abusive. That's not normal. Or it's a custody thing. She doesn't want him around Meadow.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's about kids.
I considered that. And I also considered, so a lot of the investigation up until now related to Jack and Lily's disappearance is being done through the Missing Persons Act in Nova Scotia, which gives police investigative authority to get search warrants, seize phones, search different, do what they got to do. But I wonder if laying charges now, I wonder if that opens the door for any further investigation into Daniel or gives them any extra authority or not. I don't know if they would. I read a little bit about the Missing Persons Act and what it allows police to do, and I don't think there's really any extra power they would have in a criminal investigation. So, yeah, what you said could make a lot of sense. And then on the other hand, we don't know and couldn't say, even if we did know, if the complainant was Malehya. So who's to say this isn't something related to a neighbor, someone in a car in a driveway, someone in the woods behind the house? Like, who knows? We just know it was an adult female. It happened during the time that Daniel and Malehya were together, and it happened on the street they live on. There's a million possibilities, and we probably won't know much more until March. Daniel's scheduled to appear in provincial court on the 2nd of March to face these charges. I'm definitely planning on attending, but again, with any kind of sex crime, there's publication bans. So even if I'm there and the complainant introduces themselves to me and tells me to talk about it on my podcast, I would be prohibited from doing so.
Right.
But I'm definitely going to watch what goes down with this.
Also, the victim may not even be the ones pressing charges. Police can press charges.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they found evidence, rock solid evidence, and were like, yeah, charge him.
Well, if Malehya or someone gave an interview with the police and said he held me down, he took my phone, he pushed me, like, they don't need to say, and I want to charge him. The police can just go with that.
No, absolutely not.
I'm sure that there is a lot of strategy at play.
Oh, yes.
There has to be, because it's too precarious. Like, the relationship that the RCMP has with Daniel right now, I feel like is so important in terms of the Jack and Lilly case that anything else is going to be a part of that chess game. So things are definitely getting interesting. I read about the different charges that he's facing. Again, it's assault, sexual assault, and forcible confinement. It's the sex assault and the forcible confinement are the two most serious. Either of those would hold a max sentence of 10 years if convicted. So this
maximum is
that's the
10
max sentence.
years.
Yeah. But you're in Canada, Madeleine.
For sexually assaulting someone and or keeping them in your house.
Yeah.
Good grief.
There's other kind of things that can make it complicated. If you use a weapon, it can increase the sentence. If it's a child, it can increase the sentence. And it's different sentencing for your first offense versus, future offenses. But as far as forcible confinement, like I even had to look up the actual language in the Canadian Criminal Code for what it was, because like I get the idea of forcible confinement, but as far as how it's written in the law, it's basically anyone who without authority confines, imprisons, or forcibly seizes another person. So it's basically like kidnapping, except you don't take them somewhere.
That's the only difference.
Yeah, the difference between the two is kidnapping. You do that and take them to some other place. But if I held someone down and took their phone and wouldn't let them up, that's forcible confinement. You lock the door and you don't let them out of the room when you're fighting and arguing. That could be a forcible confinement. So
absolutely.
This whole development with Daniel Martell being charged has, at least in the eyes of social media and people following this case, has just turned the whole thing on its head. Up until now, Daniel has been Mr. Frontlines, willing to talk to anyone. He's been on the internet defending himself. He's been all over the news.
He has been boyfriend and father of the year, according to him.
He has absolutely disappeared in the wake of these allegations, and I don't blame him. I don't think we're going to be hearing anything from him for a long time. But that said, we will hear a lot from him tonight. We got a lot more to get into than just Daniel being charged. What ended up happening, and the first thing we'll get into here, is it seems like Daniel had an in-depth sit-down interview with CBC at a really precarious time. On January 6th, he sat down with CBC for this big in-depth interview. Just days later, the allegations from Malehya came out that he was abusive. I think CBC maybe delayed releasing the interview because of that. Then he got charged with assault not long after that. And then they finally released this interview that we're going to listen to. It's about 20 minutes long, and we'll listen to some bits and pieces of it. But when the interview aired on CBC, it even started with, this interview was conducted on January 6th. On January 29th, Daniel was charged with, assault, sexual assault, forcible confinement. But we're going to air this anyway. Let's do this. We'll take a short break. When we get back, we can break down some of Daniel's latest interview, but what I expect to be his last for a long time. We'll get into it after a short break. Before the break, Madeleine, I briefly introduced this interview with Daniel Martell. I feel like it's kind of like CBC's unwanted stepchild just due to the timing. As I said, interview done. Days later, allegations came out against Daniel. Interview still not released. 2 weeks or so later, Daniel's charged with assault, and it's after that that they decided to release the interview with Daniel. I wonder if they just simply didn't know what to do with this thing, and then finally they're like, we just got this long interview with him, let's just
They're like,
air
screw it, put it on air. It's time.
It's really out of date, but it kind of works out because the interview, for the most part, again, about 20 minutes of it, a lot of it was just stuff we've already heard. Him talking about giving blood, him talking about that sheet he had to sign that had a checkbox that made him think that he wasn't involved, that the police didn't think he was involved because it wasn't checked as, in criminality suspected.
The checkbox that declared him innocent.
He talked about all that, but again, one of the things, and I think one of the key moments I want to listen to in the interview, is they asked him about allegations that he was controlling, maybe abusive towards Malehya. And again, I hate to beat the timeline of all this over everybody's heads, but this interview took place before news came out that Malehya, in an interview with the police, had said that Daniel was abusive to her.
There have been allegations from Malehya's friends and family that you were abusive to her. Were you?
No.
They said that when she moved in with you, she cut off all contact with them and you monitored her phone.
She also monitored mine. We both had the same passwords on her phone. And her friends, she blocked her friends on my phone and she blocked them on her own phone.
So how would you describe your relationship before the children went missing?
Yes. I don't really want to talk on that because I don't really want to talk on too much to do with Malehya. It's best that we don't.
Okay.
I just want to say, if any relationship is at the point where you're monitoring each other's phones, blocking friends, you're sharing passwords of all this like weird trust stuff, that's the point that you break up.
Normalize breaking up. And it's just like his very quick no. He didn't even think about it. He's like, no. And then when the interviewer said, oh, like it's been alleged that, you monitored her phone, he deflects right away. Oh, well, she monitored my phone. It's like, okay, well, that's not the question though. So why was she so isolated when she just got with you?
He makes it seem like it was a mutual thing. Like we both blocked her friends from both of our phones. I don't get that for one. We both blocked it and we were both like monitoring each other's phones. Like I think as this story has developed and we've gotten better look inside of this home, the relationship just looks worse and worse and worse. At first it was, the house was run down and they were broke, but, they were trying to make the best out of it. Now it's like the house was run down, they were broke. She's saying he was abusive and wouldn't let her call her mom, and they're watching each other's phones and they blocked all of Malehya's friends from contacting them. It's just like, what the hell was going on in there? There was a lot going on in this house, and it all seems bad for the most part. But something else that has over time swayed our opinion on Daniel Martell is his admitting that he did in fact have a drug problem, a hard drug problem. That is kind of a narrative that has stuck to this case like a barnacle since the beginning. This whole like drug thing, and Daniel's a meth head. You read this stuff online all the time. I thought it was all nonsense. And then not long ago, Daniel came out and said, like, yes, I did have a hard drug problem. That is something that CBC asked him about in this interview. And his response is he went into quite a bit of detail, and it's quite interesting, but it does leave a lot to be desired in terms of his transparency. But let's listen to Daniel discuss his past with hard drugs in this interview.
And so you mentioned that there were some accusations about your past drug use. Mm-hmm. I've read some things about it being drug use that week, the week the children went missing. Is there any truth to that?
No, I didn't have any drugs. And Major Crimes knows that. Or they would have, charged me with possession of drugs or drug paraphernalia. There was nothing at the house. So, and they know that.
What is your history in terms of the drug use? What would you like to share, just to clear the air?
I did not have any drugs. People thought I was doing drugs during the search. Absolutely not. I don't owe any drug dealers money. I don't owe anyone drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. I don't manufacture drugs. I can't really speak on anything more than that, I
Those
guess.
have been all the accusations made at you?
That I have, manufactured drugs, sell them. I give them to people to sell. It's crazy.
There was no drug party that night?
No, there was no drug party. There was no leaving during the middle of the night.
Yeah, so when the interviewer asked him, like, what is your history with drugs? He didn't really answer that. What he did was he just listed all the common allegations against him, like he makes brews meth or is a drug dealer or owes drugs. And a lot of these weird kind of theories or allegations are stuff people online are saying about him. Like, he probably owed a drug dealer, so they took the kids. Like, I think he's responding to this sort of stuff. But I think what she wanted was like, just tell me what's going on. Like, what are you doing? What did you have going on? Did you quit? What's the story here?
Right. And just because, he didn't have anything on him at the time that the kids disappeared, it's not illegal to do the drugs. It's illegal to be in possession or buy and sell them.
Yeah, I just think so many of us want to learn more about the dynamics in the home and the situation in the house. As bad as it is now, the thought that on top of all that, there was like hard drugs being used in and around the children would just like, that's probably the only thing really at this point that could make it any worse. And we know Daniel at one point had issues or interactions with hard drugs. But what I want to know is, like, are we talking about something that he did like 7 years ago? Or is this like a recent, kind of thing he was dealing with? And nowhere through the court documents or this interview is that explained. And I think, people would like to know that. And I think that's what she was getting at with that question.
Oh, that's absolutely what she was getting at. And we got a non-answer.
Yeah.
Will that all come out in court? Or
I don't know. I don't know why it would, because it's, whether it's this assault, sex assault, forcible confinement thing, unless maybe a part of the allegation was he did this while he was stoned or a high on whatever, maybe stuff could come out. But other than that, I don't know.
It kind of has nothing to do with anything. So why would it?
And it's, you could argue it's health information that needs to be,
oh yes,
kept private. So that may never come out, and it may just live in the public zeitgeist as this odd conspiratorial playground or sandbox to play in. One thing that was, I don't have any clips I want to air of this, but something else that came out in the interview, there was a big long segment that starts with like him complaining about social media and people attacking him and coming after him. But then it moves into a discussion about like death threats, as if he's getting these endless death threats that are being sent to him, people calling his phone and making death threats. And then he also implied that, or suggested that the police are receiving death threats and letting him know, we're getting all these death threats. I'm kind of surprised to hear that, but then again, not.
I feel like there's information missing.
It's really strange, but
I feel like the police wouldn't tell him
unless
that.
they had a reason to believe it's real. I don't think it's real, but I do know that when I look online and see people talking about this case, I see all sorts of crazy stuff about him and about Malehya and about any other persons whose name is attached to this story. It's all over the place. But a part of this interview, and one of the main things that my real takeaway from it was, a lot of it seemed self-serving. He talked a lot about him talking to the police and like his respect for police, things like, there's a lot that they're doing behind the scenes. They can't share this due to the nature of this investigation, but they give me whatever we can. And I tell them what, like, he just makes it seem like he's kind of buddy with the investigators. And I don't know if that's him trying to convince himself that that's true, or maybe they led him to believe that. Or a third option, I guess, is that he is friends with the investigators and has a collaborative relationship. But I don't really think that's the case, given that he'll be in court on March 3rd.
No, I think he's trying to paint a picture of himself and what a good guy, working with the police. And, these aren't even his biological children. And look at how much advocacy work he's doing. And yeah, I think you're right. A lot of it, 99% of it is self-serving. And we all know I was Team Daniel at the beginning of this.
Yeah, I know you were. And
I am no longer Team Daniel.
I don't know if I was as hardcore Team Daniel. Like, I don't have the tattoo like you do.
I gotta get that covered up.
For me, it was the drug stuff. When that first came out, I was like, whoa, like that's the Daniel in my mind that I'm sympathetic for. This doesn't track with that. And it's only gotten worse and worse since then. So yeah, I'm definitely not Team Daniel, but I'm still very much team, no matter what theory I follow, I eventually get to a point where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense either.
Well, and I know we've said this probably every episode, but this is why it's so bizarre. Like, we've gone down every avenue and nothing makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think the big thing that continues to shut down any theory that you follow is the fact that the morning the children were last seen, Daniel, Malehya, as well as Daniel's mom in the backyard, all claim to have heard or seen the children. And I think in the world where Daniel does some horrible thing, why does Malehya and his mother cover for him? Malehya more so than the mother.
It would never happen.
Yeah, if Malehya and her family does a horrible thing, why does Daniel and the mother cover for them? And if if the mother in the backyard does a horrible thing, how does she get away with it? Because Daniel and Malehya heard the kids, and then shortly after were out in the yard, like yelling, looking for help. Like, it seems like whatever happened in such a short period of time, and puts all three of them together, at least as eye or ear witnesses. So it's, just doesn't make sense.
And there's an old saying that goes, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
Yeah.
So, and everyone's still alive and well. So I really think that their stories are, and I mean, where are we? 8-9 months past now?
Yeah.
We would have figured it out by now.
Yeah. And
had someone like that been involved.
And just to lean on that saying more, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. 3 people definitely can't keep a secret if 2 of them are like battling it out through the media and or the courts, and there's a custody dispute. It's that the leverage you would have over the other person is so strong that police would be able to play with that so quickly and get something done.
And one's a pissed off East Coast grandmother. Oh, no. No one's getting away with nothing.
Let's move on to the next kind of topic here. So we had the charges against Daniel. We traveled back in time a little bit to hear this interview that puts CBC in an odd spot, but they finally decided to release it. Something else I want to get into is the RCMP Staff Sergeant McCammon, who's the head of RCMP's Major Crime Unit. He gave an interview with CBC as well. I couldn't get an idea of the date of this interview. I believe the interview may have happened after the charges against Daniel were filed, but I don't know for sure, and they don't address those charges in the interview. So it's just kind of another odd timing, but there's some interesting stuff that was said in this. He talks in general about the case, and he does a lot of those, answer, non-answer things, because of course he can't give any specific details, but he does talk about Daniel giving blood, something that Daniel has brought up quite a bit. And again, the whole thing is Daniel has said several times that he voluntarily gave his blood to the RCMP, and that in giving blood had to sign a consent form that had a little box that said whether or not there was criminal involvement, and his box was not checked. And he took that as kind of a sign of his...
He's free to go.
Yeah, a sign of his his innocence. Let me start with that little clip of this interview from RCMP Staff Sergeant McCammon. He talks about and answers questions about Daniel giving that blood.
The children's stepfather, Daniel Martell, has also indicated that recently his DNA sample was taken. Why now?
Because it was the appropriate time, or we felt it was time to collect that information, of course. Sometimes DNA doesn't necessarily, not because anybody's a suspect, but maybe we may find DNA in places where we expect it to be found, and we need to be able to eliminate people. So it's something that we do, especially in missing persons cases, that to collect that information, make sure it's safeguarded.
Are any of the children's family members considered suspects in this case?
I wouldn't say anybody's a suspect. Again, we continue to gather information and whatever evidence that we are able to find, and we'll make our decisions based on that. But we are not in a position to really comment on suspects or anything like that at this time.
But it's so frustrating hearing the non-answers. Like, he will answer to an extent, but then there's like this backpedal of, we can't say one way or another.
Oh, those are the answers I was expecting. Yeah. It's an ongoing investigation.
Yeah, I know.
You can't sing like a canary.
It's true, but it's why did Daniel give blood? Now is the right time. Like, I'm just thinking, like, do we want to read between the lines to try to get why now would be the right time? Because let me just say this. After 2 months, the kids aren't found. Wouldn't it kind of make sense then if you're just getting everyone's DNA just to have it on file in case it's necessary? Why not just do it 2 months ago, or 2 months after they go missing? Get Daniel's, Malehya's, everybody's, and just so we have it.
Well, and he was bragging about how he voluntarily, offered this blood sample, and that's what he made it sound like. But he's like, here, take my blood. But
then again, here's another thing: I've come across so many cases where investigators have, found trick someone into giving a cigarette butt, or going into their garbage or something to get a DNA sample to kind of convict them of a crime. If they really wanted Daniel's DNA for this, smoking gun lead that was going to lead to an arrest, they could have gotten it a million other ways rather than having him voluntarily do it. So a part of me thinks, did they maybe just, crossing their T's, dotting their I's, say, yeah, we'll take your blood now. It's like, we don't need it for any reason, but let's just do it. Here's this box to sign.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that Daniel thinks he knows everything, and the police are like 4 or 5 steps ahead, and he's a puppet at this point. Like, they know what they're doing, and they're playing him like a fiddle.
Next piece of this interview with Staff Sergeant McCammon I want to share is kind of the ending segment of the interview. The CBC interviewer is asking him about the status of the case, which of course he can't really say much about, but they do ask, do you think this will be solved? Is this going to become a cold case? And his answer to that question I thought was interesting.
As we approach the 1-year mark, is there any sense that this could become a cold case at this point?
I can't really comment on that. The information investigative work will dictate that. As far as I'm concerned, it's not going to be a cold case. This is a case that needs to be solved, so we will pursue every avenue available to us to ascertain what happened with Jack and Lilly.
So as of right now, it remains very active.
Very active. Very active, yeah.
Do you think this will be solved in the near future?
I hesitate to put any timelines because, as I said, this is a large investigation, and this, as you've identified, there's a lot to it. It's not an everyday kind of file that's fairly simple and straightforward. So I hate to put a timeline on it, but I believe that with hard work and the work we're doing and the information we gather, we will find out what happened with Jack and Lilly.
Give me a read on it. Is he just saying that because it's the right thing to say, or do you think he thinks this is going to get solved?
Oh, he knows something we don't. The confidence in his answers about like the near future, the cold case, he knows something we don't.
They're close.
They're close. They're very, very close. And now it's just a matter of time.
But do you think that the charges against Daniel, even if it has nothing to do with Jack and Lilly Sullivan's disappearance, do you think the charges against Daniel happening now at this time in some way is a part of a strategy to close this case?
Absolutely. He might not have anything to do with it, but he's guilty in other areas of life, like being a shitty boyfriend and maybe an abusive stepfather, who knows? But yeah, no, this is all calculated.
It seems it. I will be shocked if it isn't. I think
just remember that these investigators have been there, done that, and got the t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So they know what they're doing, and nothing is done for no reason.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to our final segment of this episode. We've talked about Daniel's arrest. We've heard the lost CBC interview, as I'm calling it. We've heard from Staff Sergeant McCammon, the head of Major Crimes Unit with RCMP. Now we're going to have a first. We've done 16 episodes of this show. This is going to be the first time we hear from Malehya's camp. Malehya didn't come forward and speak to media herself, but two of her best friends, as well as her mother, did a 20-ish minute sit-down interview with the CBC. When we get back from a break, we'll listen in on some of that. So as I said before the break, Madeleine, is someone we haven't heard from since the very beginning of this case is the children's mother, Malehya Brooks Murray. That sort of changed after the allegations and the charges against Daniel came out. Just last week, not Malehya herself, but two of Malehya's best friends, as well as Malehya's mother, Cindy, sat down with CBC for a 20-ish minute interview that kind of covers all aspects of the case. But I thought the parts that were most interesting really was discussions about the initial search and life in Malehya and Daniel's home. That was kind of the parts of the interview that I found most interesting. But before we get into some of the clips from this and talking about them, let's first talk about the interview with Malehya's two friends, Angeline and Cheryl. The reason I want to ask you about it is I found it was like almost an awkward interview. I feel like the CBC reporter maybe had the opportunity to interview them and took it, but then when they sat down, there was very little said in a 20-minute interview.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if her friends got permission from Malehya to like speak to this reporter.
Yeah, I wonder if the reporter went to Malehya or like contacted them saying like, we'd like to talk. And maybe she offered up her friends. Like, I'm not comfortable doing it, but my two best friends will meet with you. But it was tough because the two best friends that speak, they really knew nothing about Daniel and nothing about Malehya's life with Daniel, because she basically cut them off as soon as she got with Daniel. So they knew nothing about that relationship. They didn't even know where Malehya and the kids were living until the day the kids went missing, and Malehya started reaching out to people, and they were and her friends were seeing it on the news, and people then got involved in the search. Let's just jump right into the clip with that. One of, I thought, the most interesting clips from the entire 20-ish minutes between these two friends and CBC, the reporter asked asked them to describe the mood around the search on May 2nd. Because again, one friend in particular, I believe it was Angeline, when she found out that Jack and Lilly were missing, she went right to Lansdowne Station to take part in the search. And she seems, I'll let her say it, but she was pretty surprised with what she saw as far as the living conditions in the home.
How would you describe the mood that day?
It was different. It was kind of odd, I guess. For the situation, I didn't really know what to expect. It was different.
How was it odd?
A lot of controversy, a lot of family issues, a lot of family dynamics. Like I said, it was my first time over there, never met anybody over there. Just didn't feel very welcoming.
Do you want to speak to why you hadn't been over there?
Kind of lost touch with Malehya after she had moved over there. And I feel bad about not keeping in touch with her, but I didn't know how else to get a hold of her.
What were you surprised about when you got there?
The conditions that the kids were living in, things that we had learned through looking for the kids.
A lot of the speculation has been, why did Malehya and her family leave and not come back? Mm-hmm. Anything you'd like to say about why that decision was made?
She had left because we weren't leaving her there.
What concerned you the most?
Just the condition of the house. I mean, I know that not everybody has a fancy house, not everybody is rich, but there's things that you can do to improve your living conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she never grew up that way. Her mom always had a nice clean house, and her grandmother always had a nice clean house too, and that's how she was. That's what she was.
There's a lot to say about that clip, but I think, again, as I said in the beginning, this idea that her friends were completely isolated from her when she was there, that surprises me. And again, it just speaks to how toxic and awful that relationship is. If you have a relationship where your best friends are completely out of your life to the point they don't even know where you and your kids are living, some weird stuff's going on.
But I really love these two friends because I think it speaks to the like how much power friendship and sisterhood can have. Because clearly they've known her forever if they know what her mother and grandmother's house looked like. And I think these women are really great to have lost touch with their friend who is obviously going through a rough time. But then as soon as something happens, their kids went missing, they were front and center, man. They didn't even think twice.
Well, yeah, and one sign of that in that interview, the reporter asked, people are critical of Malehya and her family, like leaving the search and getting out of town. What's the story with that? She even says she left because we weren't leaving her there.
Yes, and which is you can go 2 years without talking to someone because she's in a terrible situation, and they're still there for her when the worst thing imaginable happens, which I think is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I thought they did a great job of speaking for her and for her situation. Unlike Daniel, in the interviews we heard with him, I didn't find that these friends, it didn't seem like it was this self-serving, I am such a good friend and I'm going to be there. As if they weren't, it didn't seem like it was this ego, boisterous kind of propping themselves upness. It almost seems like they were a little uncomfortable to be answering the questions, but they came across as sincere, genuine friends who were worried about Malehya and are doing everything they can to help her through this. I will play another clip on that note. One of the questions that was asked by CBC is, how is she doing? And I think something everybody following this story is curious about is, what's happening with Malehya? Where is she? What's she doing? How is she doing? Why is she so silent? Let's listen to how these two friends answered that question.
And so how are you supporting her now through this?
She has been here pretty much every day since the kids went missing. Yeah. we just try to help her and guide her in the right direction and give her the hope that the kids will be found.
Yeah, the support that she needs to like navigate it, either like emotionally or just us being there, like talking about what she could do and like how it might be like a benefit.
Yeah.
How is she doing?
Not great. I've noticed a significant decrease in her weight since the kids have gone missing. She's just trying to take it day by day.
I couldn't imagine having to parent a 2-year-old while actively missing and searching for my children, other children. My God.
Well, it's, you have friends to lean on as well as family. My understanding is her mother, Malehya's mom, has had more than a big role in dealing with their daughter, her and Daniel's daughter, Meadow. But yeah, a lot of that, it's like without her speaking, and I'm not surprised that she isn't appearing on the news herself and all this. Like I've seen the reaction to every interview Daniel has given. But then again, it seems like every time he comes out, he just is his own worst enemy, and it's I think that's over now, as we've already said. But this interview with Malehya's friends, I've waited so long to hear from her camp or her side of the story, and in hearing it, I don't know what I was expecting. In a way, I'm underwhelmed because I don't really know anymore. But then in another way, I just kind of feel bad for everybody on that side.
Oh, there are no winners in this case, unfortunately. But I find it noteworthy that like Malehya has quite the support system, and Daniel doesn't.
He seems like quite the loner, right? It seems like it's him and his mom. We don't see or hear anyone else mentioned.
There is a reason for that. There's a reason Malehya's got friends from childhood that stick around. And then there's a reason that Daniel does not.
Yeah. And you may notice for people listening, we didn't talk much about Malehya's mother, Cindy, in her interview or statements with CBC. For one, she didn't appear on camera. They didn't have the camera focused on her. The camera was like pointed at her lap where she was holding pictures of the children. But she didn't have a lot to say. It was more just expressing sorrow with the whole situation and talking about how hard it's been. But I think anyone out there who's following this case, in this episode's description, I'm going to have links to each of the interviews we've talked about tonight. And I'd suggest watching all of them because so much is said that we wouldn't have time to break down. There was a lot of discussion about the Amber Alert, which is something that's come up a lot. Like Malehya's friends questioned the RCMP not issuing an Amber Alert and also suggested that they were kind of almost promised that there would be one, but then it didn't happen. That's something that Staff Sergeant McCammon addressed in his interview with CBC, but it's there's a lot to it. So I suggest anyone sit down and watch all of them because, again, using my own words, I couldn't convey everything that went down in those. But I think we hit the main boxes. But all of this to say is, Madeleine, so much has changed within 2 weeks in this case.
Do I have to go to Mexico again?
It is weird how that happened. As soon as you left, it's just been one thing after another. You're on vacation, and the whole time I'm just texting you like, and now this, and now this. But
I was like, do I need to find Wi-Fi? We can stream here.
This case, a lot of people are talking about the idea that it's on its way to being a cold case. It's almost at a year. Things are definitely happening. Now more than ever, it's like things are rolling big time.
The cops have left us enough Easter eggs in their interviews for us to know that like the time is coming. They know a lot more than we do. And I hope that this doesn't make it to a year. I hope the answer is right around the corner.
Well, I hope the reason it's taking so long is because it's complicated and they're building a rock solid case that when charges are finally laid, it's a rock solid, slam dunk.
They don't want nothing interfering.
Things are definitely happening now, 9 months into this. So the fact that things are happening now, I think it must be pretty exciting and give a lot of hope for people close to this story. People who are, we've heard from the children's grandmother, Belinda Gray, wanting people to keep Jack and Lilly in their hearts and in their minds, keep their faces on TV, to have these kind of developments that make it not only a local or a provincial story, but make it, again, a national story. When Daniel was arrested, news outlets around the world were talking about this case, at least for the day. Like, it brought it right back. And I can't help but think that that's the kind of thing that shakes the tree, that maybe makes some people talk or makes things happen. It's been so hard to block out the noise. And more than any other case I think I've ever covered, the amount of noise and nonsensical humming that resonates from this story is at times deafening.
I can't wait for silence and an answer.
It's going to be, I think it's around the corner. And let's end with that. Is given everything that's happening, I think it's just around the corner. Anyone out there who has any thoughts, theories, or opinions, or anything at all to say about the developments we discussed tonight, if you go to thecanadiangothic.com/contact and use the voice recorder, we'll try to include them in the next episode, which I think is probably going to happen sooner than later. But I appreciate you all for paying attention to the story, keeping Jack and Lilly in your minds and keeping their stories out there. And Madeleine, I appreciate you for helping me break down this story with its many twists and turns. I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of The Canadian Gothic. Before I end here, I want to send positive vibes to everyone affected by this case, and I also want to call out to anyone close to the story to reach out to me. I'd be happy to add your voice to the show if you care to speak out. And with that said, I'm going to start wrapping up the episode, but before I do, let me end with some thanks. First, a big thanks to Madeleine Klein for joining us for this episode. A big thanks to Monty Datta for contributing the music to the show, and Linz from the Dystopian Simulation podcast for providing the intro and outro voiceovers. But then lastly, most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to the show. Without your interest and your support, the Canadian Gothic would be as pointless as it would be impossible. And on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Kathy, Karen, and the Jim Waring, we appreciate you. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help us out in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple bucks a month, and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But it'll also give you those episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at thecanadiangothic.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. Now, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
Thank you for listening to Canadian Gothic.